The Earth's ice sheet is disappearing, and very quickly. For example, glaciers in Glacier National Park in Montana are under the threat of complete melting by 2033. Due to climatic changes. Since 1850, the total number of big glaciers in this area has decreased from 100 to 25. Yet this serious problem also has another side. Such natural processes lift the veil hiding unique discoveries that used to rest ice cores. And every new discovery brings humanity closer to solving mysteries of both the past and the future. Recently, scientists walked into an amazing finding: a giant virus at the age of more than 30,000 years, which used to live in permanently frozen soils near the Kolyma River in Russia. According to the scientists, such viruses are absolutely safe for people since they live parasitically on amoebas only. Scientists also do not exclude a possibility of other viruses living in permanently frozen subsoil that would live parasitically not only on single-celled organisms. For example, global warming can wake up viruses posing a potential risk to humans. There is also a slight possibility that pathogenic microbes that used to infest ancient people can revive and infest modern people. These disease-inducing microorganisms can be presented by usual bacteria that can be treated using antibiotics or medicine-resistant bacteria, and even dangerous viruses. If they did not die out long ago, our immune system is not ready to confront them. Anyway, it is the biggest scientifically described virus hunting amoebas by today. Ice Maiden. In 1999, at the border of Argentina and Chile, in the ices of the Yuyayaco volcano at the height of 6,707 meters, a body of a teenage girl from the Incas was found. She looked as if she had died a couple weeks ago. Scientists found out that the girl, aged between 13 and 15 years, called the Ice Maiden, was killed as a result of a blunt force head trauma 1,500 years ago during a religious ritual. Low temperature helped to preserve her body and hair, together with the clothes and sacred objects, in perfect state. Next to her there were plates with food, golden and silver statues, and an unusual headwear made of white feathers of an unknown bird. Scientists also found bodies of two more victims of the Incas, a boy and a girl aged between 6 and 7 years. During their studies, the scientists discovered that the children were prepared for the cult for a long time. The Incas fed them with elite products, llama meat and corn, cocaine and alcohol. According to the historians, the Incas chose for their rituals the most beautiful children. Frozen mammoth. In 2010 in Siberia, which is probably the most unknown region of Russia, a female woolly mammoth weighing 1 ton and called Yuka was found. She was lying in permanently frozen soils of Siberia for 39,000 years. But her body has been preserved so well that you can even see its wool and muscle tissue. And for the first time ever, scientists managed to draw blood from a prehistoric animal. They put forward an assumption that probably the mammoth got stuck in a swamp and died, since the lower part of its body was intact thanks to the surrounding ice. Although some parts of its body completely disappeared, such a finding possesses great scientific value. Scientists from South Korea declared that thanks to DNA samples taken from Yuka's body, they have a chance to clone mammoths, thus reviving the whole species. If it happens, researchers won't have to go to Siberia in search of woolly mammoths anymore. Ötzi's mummy. In September 1991, 2 German tourists walked into an unusual finding: the perfectly preserved remains of a human body frozen in ice. They thought that these remains belonged to an alpinist that had recently disappeared in the ice. Yet, after the research, the scientists discovered that the mummified man was no less than 5,000 years old. This discovery was unique in its own way, since never before had scientists managed to restore an absolutely intact body of the Chalcolithic period. Edsy's stomach contained undigested residues of his last meal, which meant that he died unexpectedly. Later on, X-rays showed that there was an arrowhead in the mummy's shoulder. It proved that 5,000 years ago, Etsy was killed when fighting with an enemy. Soon after his death, Etsy's body was frozen in ice and covered with snow, which saved him from predators. And since his body was lying in a deep pit, his body remained intact after the glacier movement. The DNA analysis has proven that an ancient Iceman has at least 19 living relatives.